Hey guys, my name is Tegan. I'm a vacuum pump technician here at Blue Alpine, and today I'm going to show you how to diagnose your vacuum pump. In this video, we are only going to be diagnosing the vacuum pump, but if you do run into any problems with your vacuum pump, we will have videos in the description of how to fix those. And of course, if you have any problems, feel free to give us a call or an email at contact@bluealpinefreezedryers.com. The first step is going to be taking a plastic container and your Allen wrench and removing the oil out of your vacuum pump. It will drain to the bottom, so make sure you have your cup below. Also, when draining your oil, you're going to want to take off your filter. That filter will create a suction that won't allow any air coming through, so your vacuum pump oil will not drain quickly. So by removing your filter, your vacuum pump will just drain a lot faster. We have already drained the oil out of this vacuum pump just to keep things clean for the video, but your vacuum pump will need to be drained. Keep in mind that when you do take apart your vacuum pump, there is going to be more oil sitting at the bottom of your container and through each stage of the vacuum pump. So just be cautious to have paper towels on hand when taking your vacuum pump apart. The next step is going to be removing the 4 screws that hold on the pump head. Be careful when you take out the 4 screws, put them in somewhere where they're not going to get lost. It is really hard to keep track of these screws sometimes, so please just be cautious on where you're putting them. And taking off these 4 screws, you are going to want to hold tension on the head so that when you take the last screw out, the head doesn't go falling on the floor. There is nothing holding up the head after you take the 4 screws out. What I like to do is add a paper towel underneath your vacuum pump when taking the head off, so if there is any oil still sitting at the bottom of your vacuum pump, it will fall on the paper towel and not make a mess. And taking the last screw out, hold the vacuum pump, and the first thing you're going to want to do is tip it back so the oil stays in the chamber. And then you're going to want to take your head and set it to the side. Okay, the first thing we're going to diagnose with this vacuum pump is the brass wiper that should be in the front of your vacuum pump. To get to the brass wiper, you're going to remove these 3 screws covering this little plate on the front of your vacuum pump. Once you take those 3 screws out, this piece should just be able to be set to the side. That is what your brass wiper should look like. It should be sitting flush, should not be sticking out at all, and it should have a little gap between the groove. That means that it is separated and is making connection with both sides of the wall. The biggest problem we see with the brass wipers is if there's not a big enough gap between each wiper, there is a small spring between, and you want that spring to get activated. And you know it's activated if there's a gap between holding the wiper against the wall. If your brass wiper does not look like it has a gap, at that point you will want to get a new brass wiper for your vacuum pump. Next, we're going to check your reed valves on your vacuum pump. So to start, you're going to want to take your pliers and you're going to want to take off these nuts that's holding down this piece of plastic that is covering the reed valves. Next step is to pull off the covers. It will expose your 3 reed valves. This is the first, second, and third. The first thing to look for in your reed valves is that this top brass piece is stable. You're going to want to take your finger and just try to wiggle them, make sure they're not loose. If they are loose, you can take your pliers and just tighten them back down. The other thing you're going to look for in your reed valves is there is a hole underneath this piece that your reed valve is covering. If your reed valve is shifted to the side and not covering the hole, that will cause a vacuum problem. What you're going to want to do is shift your reed valve back and then tighten your reed valve back down so that this doesn't move. Most of the time with these reed valves, the only thing that will need to be fixed is the alignment with the reed valve or cleaning underneath the reed valve. The only time you'll need to be sent a new reed valve is if your reed valve is physically cracked or broken. The next thing we're going to look for is the O-rings. There will be 3 O-rings after you take apart the vacuum pump. There's one on the filter. It should be sitting just below the filter like that. You're going to look for any scratches, cuts, tears. If it looks fine, it's sitting flat, that's a really good sign. That's a good O-ring. The next O-ring you're going to look for is the one around the cover. You're going to look for the exact same thing, that it's sitting flat, that there are no scratches, no cuts. If there are any scratches or cuts, we will need to send you a replacement O-ring. There is one more O-ring, and it will be inside of the drain plug. If you take the drain plug all the way out, you will see the O-ring sitting on there. Make sure that one has no scratches or cuts as well. And then all your O-rings should be just fine. If you have gotten to this point and your pump is still not able to pull vacuum, the next step would be taking apart the whole pump head. We would have to send you a whole new replacement, and that is definitely a bigger project than just what we have shown you today. Get in contact with us and we'll explain to you bigger steps and have a separate video on how to fix the whole pump head. Now I'm going to show you how to put your vacuum pump back together. The first step you're going to want to do is take the cover and set it back on. The bigger one goes in back and it should go through both screws. The smaller one sits on the front. Next thing you're going to do, take your little nuts and put them back on. Next step is going to be taking your pliers and tightening these back down all the way. You're not going to want to over thread these, but you are going to want to make sure this cover is not going to move. The next step is going to be taking your Allen wrench and putting back on the front plate. This plate is directional. It will have 2 grooves. As you can see, there's a groove right there and a groove right there. So you're going to want to line it up with the grooves. So you're going to want to put this one right here, screw it all the way in. Take your next one, pull it up with the screw. I like to get these all started before I tighten one down completely, just so it's easier to line them up. Once I have them all in, then you can tighten them down all the way. They should line up just fine. What you're going to want to check for is make sure you put it on correctly. You're going to want to make sure that groove lines up with the back. You're going to make sure that groove lines up with this one, and then this bottom one will not have a groove to line up with. The next step you are going to want to do is take your vacuum pump cover and put it back on. You're going to want to make sure when you're putting this back on that this O-ring stays set in place. If this O-ring can come out, it will cause leakage. So make sure the O-ring sits in there so that when you tighten this thing down fully, your vacuum pump is not leaking. For this, I'm going to take my drill, start putting this screw back in. Same thing with the other one. I'm not going to tighten it down completely. I'm just going to put it there to hold it in place, just so I can line all 4 of them up. And I like to go diagonal. So if I do top left, I'm going to do bottom right. And then next I'll go to top right, and then I'll do bottom left. And once I get the bottom left one in, that's when I will start to screw it down tight and make sure that it's not going to fall off. Once the last screw is tightened down, you're going to want to take your filter, put your filter back on top. You're going to want to ensure that your drain plug is fully tightened, so when you add oil back into your pump, it is not going to leak, and you are ready to freeze dry again. There will be links in the description for all the parts you will need to replace your vacuum pump, as well as video tutorials on how to replace certain things. If you're still having troubles with your vacuum pump, please reach out to us and we will help you figure out whatever else it could be. Hopefully you guys find this video helpful, and thank you for watching.